Hi, and welcome to the ALCC Tip of the Week. Today we're going to be looking at present simple. Now, this may seem like a simple grammar form, but it's actually quite an important grammar form, especially because it forms the basis for some grammar that you learn later on in your English learning. If you've covered this before, stick around, you might learn something new and something useful. If you haven't covered this before, it's really important that you watch this video. So I hope you learned something new, and I hope you comment below as always. So as always, stick around, and thanks for joining. Okay, so firstly, we need to look at what are called adverbs of frequency. Adverbs of frequency are just adverbs that tell us how often we do something. So how many times we do something within a certain time period. Now, if it's something that happens 100% of the time, we would say always. For example, I always eat pizza on Monday. That means every Monday I eat pizza. We start at 100% and we can go down the scale from that. Below always is almost always. Below that is usually. Below that, often. Then at 50% of the time, we have sometimes. Then rarely. Then hardly ever. Next, similar to almost always is close to 100%, almost never is close to 0%. And 0% would be never. For example, I never play soccer on Saturdays. That means it's something I just don't do on Saturdays. These are really important when we're talking about present simple grammar. So it'd be a good idea to pause the video if you don't know these and just take a minute to review them, memorize them, and then keep going. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try and figure out what does present simple mean. This is actually quite easy. Present simple describes something that happens regularly in your life. Now, you may or may not be doing it right now at the moment. That's not what's important. What's important is that it is something that regularly, or in the case of a negative, doesn't regularly happen in your life. So as you can see, I've written P for past, F for future, and N for now. You can see it is something that generally or regularly happens, a part of your life, or a part of who you are, a part of your daily experiences. So the present simple really describes your state of being. Now, let's take a look at the three grammar forms that go along with the present simple. We have positive, negative, and question. So the first one we want to look at is positive. Now, positive is pretty basic. It's the easiest of all of them. All we have is a subject, for example, I, you, he, she, it, basically the doer of the sentence, and a base verb. Now, a base verb is a verb in its raw form, its simplest form. No ed, no ing, just a basic verb. That's why we call it a base verb. And some subjects have to add an S onto this verb. He, she, it, and someone's name has to have an S on the verb. All the other ones take no S. And we also add our adverb of frequency, if we want to, between the subject and the base verb. Do you remember what the adverbs of frequency are? It's what I talked about in the last segment. Always, usually, never, things like that. Now let's take a look at the sentence that I wrote. She drinks coffee in the morning. Something she regularly does in the morning. I could add my adverb of frequency if I'd like. She always drinks coffee in the morning. She usually drinks coffee in the morning. She never drinks coffee in the morning. Whatever I would like to add in order to emphasize how often or how many times this happens. Now, if you notice, I have the subject she, so that means I have to put the S onto the verb for subject-verb agreement. If I had said you, then I wouldn't need an S. You drink. He drinks. She drinks. And so on. So now let's take a look at negative. So with negative we have subject, but then it changes. We have do or does. Then we have not, then base verb. Now notice the base verb has no S. This is true for both negative and for question. It's only for positive we need the S. So subject plus do or does, not base verb. Do or does plus not can be used into a contraction don't or doesn't. Then we put our adverb of frequency, if we want, between not and the base verb. So let's take a look at the example I've written. I don't like soccer. It's something that I generally or regularly don't like. Now let's take a look at questions. Now questions are a little bit different. As with all questions in English, the subject has to come second. If you see positive and negative, the subjects come at the beginning. But with question, we have to flip the auxiliary verb and the subject. So this comes first. Do or does begins the sentence, and the subject comes next. So do or does, subject, base verb. As with the negative, we have no S here. And we can put our adverb of frequency in between the subject and the base verb. So let's look at the example I've written. Do they live in Canada? Now, there is one thing we can add to modify questions. These are what are called WH question words. So WH question words would come at the beginning, before the do or does. WH question words are words like who, what, when, where, and why, and even how, although it begins with an H. These would come at the beginning to give more information or ask more information about the question. Okay, so just for review, I'd like to take a look at some practice sentences. Now, I will put these up so you can pause the video and take a longer look if you'd like, but for now I've written them on the whiteboard. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some sentences have more than one mistake. So take a minute, pause the video, see if you can figure out what the problems are, and then come back. I'll be waiting, I promise. So, did you find all the mistakes? If not, don't worry. Come on, I'll help you out. Let's begin with the first one. She plays soccer every day. She play. There's a problem. We need an S after plays. Because we're using the subject she plays. Remember, the pronoun that you use here is very important, whether this verb takes an S or no. Next one. He don't likes to eat pizza. He don't? No, he doesn't. He doesn't likes to eat pizza. He doesn't likes to eat pizza? Remember, it's a negative statement. And since it's a negative statement, we don't need an S. He doesn't like to eat pizza. All right, let's look at the next one. They drink beer always at home. They drink beer always at home. The problem is with the always. Do you remember? Always has to come between the subject and the verb. They always drink beer at home. All right, let's look at the next one. She is a teacher? She is a teacher? Well, we have a problem here too. The problem is, if it's a question, these have to be flipped around. Remember, the subject comes second. Is she a teacher? That's how we ask questions. And the last one. I never eats candy. I never eats candy. Well, we have a little bit of a problem there too. It's similar to the first problem. I'm using the pronoun I, which means that I don't need an S here. I never eat candy. I hope you got those, but even if you didn't get all of them, that's fine. Keep practicing. I'm sure you'll do better next time. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's Tip of the Week. I hope it was helpful, I hope it was informative, and I hope you got something useful out of it. Now, this is a basic grammar form, but it is a really important grammar form for building up, and I will do later grammar forms that will be more complicated. If you have any questions or comments or something you'd like to see in a future video, please comment below and I'll answer your comments, and I'll also try and make videos based on your comments. So as always, thank you very much for sticking around. Thanks for watching. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook, and I hope to see you guys next time.